Hello and welcome to Built on Air, a podcast and video series about all things Airtable. I'm your host, Zoe Vanderplew, and I'd like to thank our sponsor, OpenSide. Visit openside.com for products and services that will take your Airtable to the next level. Use promo code BuiltOnAir, one word, all caps, for a one-time $20 credit off of any purchase. On the show today, I welcome Jason Montoya from Atlanta, Georgia. Jason is a consultant, freelancer, and self-described small business firefighter. He works with companies as a sort of virtual chief growth officer to help them streamline their internal processes, improve their marketing, and increase their revenue. Jason is also a huge proponent of the freelance lifestyle, and he has written extensively on the subject in his blog and in his book, Path of the Freelancer, an actionable guide to flourishing in freelancing. Jason uses Airtable as a hub for his own client and project management. He gives us a demo of his Freelancing Dashboard base, which allows him to approach each workday with intention by easily tracking his projects, hours, and finances. He also shows us how he uses Airtable to collaboratively manage projects and tasks across an entire team of freelancers. Check out BuiltOnAir.com for more Built On Air episodes, and while you're at it, sign up for our mailing list to get weekly updates on all things Airtable. Hey Jason, thank you so much for being with us here on Built On Air. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Zoe. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
For sure. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, again, my name's Jason Scott Montoya. I'm a freelancer. I'm located here in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I've been here in Atlanta since 2005. When I first moved here, I had sort of ambitions to get into the film industry and to write and direct, but got derailed, ended up launching a marketing company for 7 years from 2007 to 2014, and decided, sort of the short version of that is decided I didn't want to, what did I want to be when I grow up? And launching a marketing company was not it. So ended up shutting it down, but I still had business owners coming to me and say, hey, we need your help. So ended up helping them, and I became a freelancer. And then essentially I embraced that after a few years of that happening. Started blogging intentionally since 2014, so I would consider myself a blogger. And then I wrote my first book, which I published in 2017, called Path of the Freelancer, which is an actionable guide for freelancers to flourish. And so that's something that I've done, is writing is a big part of it. But for me, I work with small business owners specifically that have a digital transaction, and I help them grow their business, their income, their teams. So growing, helping them to lead those people and to build those people out, and then also helping with the owner in terms of coaching and strategy planning. So that's I kind of put that all under an umbrella of a virtual chief growth officer, but ultimately it's how do we grow your small digital business.
Cool. Yeah, very interesting path. It's like you started, right, wanting to do gig economy film stuff, had the marketing in the middle, and then now you're back to, the kind of freelance gig stuff.
Yeah. And the great thing is, the difference between the business there, I had a lot of employees and payroll and, and clients, and it's a lot of work. But as a freelancer, I can do a lot of the things that I'm good at, exclude the things I'm not, and make a lot more money than I was as a business. And then I'm also married and I've got 5 kids. So, I gotta provide, but I also need the flexibility to engage with them in the craziness of life that we have here in North Georgia. So
For sure. I can imagine, just realizing, at a point you're like, I don't really want to be spending all of this time making all of these decisions that like that I don't really care about. You're just kind of honing in on what is really important to you. That's awesome.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit then, as sort of like a virtual chief growth officer, as you might describe yourself, what is your kind of day to day like? Especially, like I think a lot of the titles sort of in the freelancing, like gig economy world, you're like, how do I describe myself, right? Like to encompass all of the things that you might do. So just give us kind of a picture of the day to day.
Yeah. And For me, what I do is it is a little odd and unique in terms of explaining it, and that's something I've wrestled with over the years, and I've gotten words to help that. But it's challenging because it's very unique. So when I was running my marketing company, there was this role that I was always looking to hire, and it was kind of this strategic project manager. And what I wanted was someone that could jump into the trenches and make stuff happen. And me as a business owner, kind of visioneer and fly my kite around around and find places we could go. But I found this tension that when I found somebody that kind of seemed like they were really structured and organized and they would be a really good fit, we would hire them. And the chaos of our business, they would run away. Like, I can't handle this. This is too stressful. You guys are too disorganized. So we just had this struggle. And so when I ended up becoming a freelancer, I kind of thought about that. I said, well, what if I just become the person I wanted to hire that I could never find? And then I'll have like this unique differentiator, right? So I kind of imagine myself as small business firefighter, in the sense that when the business is burning down, when there's trouble or chaos or whatever it is, I'm the one going into the building when everyone is exiting. And so I go into these small businesses that have different chaos going on, and it could be growth chaos because it's just they're growing and there's just stuff going, or it could be kind of a decay chaos where they're kind of riding on a wave of success and it's starting to decay. But another way I think about it is, I jump in, I help figure out what's going on, and I got a 5-stage process that I walk us through, just conceptually. Which is, first is, what are the low-hanging fruit things we can do? So we go into the business. What can we do to just make an impact? I had a recent client that I'm working with, and they weren't doing email marketing, and they had an email marketing list of like 80,000 people. So it's like, well, let's just start doing that. So helping to create those, put the content together, make things happen. So low-hanging fruit. Second is simplify everything. Let's just get it down bare bones. Let's get it optimized and efficient. Third thing is make what's left better. So anything that makes the cut, make it better. Fourth is find and fill in the gaps. And then the fifth is master maintenance. So how do we create an ecosystem where we're continuing to grow and build on what we've created? So I jump in and help do that. Tactically speaking, that a lot of it ends up being project management, planning, strategic development, delegation. But tactically, there are certain things I'm good at: writing, email marketing, SEO, things like that. So I kind of play a role of strategic and tactical, because I like to be able to get stuff done and help make some progress, and then we can find someone else to help do that in the long term. Make sense?
One thing that I always find kind of really gratifying about projects like that is the ability to kind of zoom in and zoom out when you need to. So it's like that ability to kind of
Yes.
zoom out, right, see the entire scope of things, understand how things intertwine, and then also be able to kind of handle one specific problem or set of considerations.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of like ability to always be like moving up and down on the scale. I think that is kind of really.
Yeah. And I like that, because with a lot of strategic stuff, it can be kind of vague and loose, and it's hard to know, like, are we actually doing success? But when we get into tactical things, like I wrote this or I created this, it's like there's a satisfaction of just completing something and being done with it. So
Yes, absolutely. You need those like little small wins to kind of
yes.
keep you moving along, for sure.
Yes, correct. So, and the other thing too is just, for me working with small business owners, I know what it's like to wear a million hats. I know the reality of cash flow, and I really want to jump in, make an impact. And really, for me, my goal is, as quickly as possible, I want to make sure that the value I'm providing far exceeds the cost. And so, essentially, I want to make it stupid for you not to work with me because of that value.
Nice. Yeah.
So.
And you mentioned, right, all of your clients, they all have digital products, right? Not physical.
Um, that's my focus, my target, because I can help in terms of, especially even like with Airtable and some of the stuff we can do with automation and connecting data from the beginning, the visit to the sale. The digital transaction's ideal. Now, I do have a few clients that don't have that, but it does make it challenging. But those tend to be more sales-oriented organizations,
Hmm.
and it has a whole nother set of challenges. But and I can help them, but at the end of the day, it's like me helping them with one arm tied behind my back. They're just a piece of my toolbox that I'm not able to leverage. So
Right. Yeah. So digitally, you're able to kind of have control over the whole process, so your methods can work to their
yeah,
full extent.
and sometimes it's just a matter of making some things digital or online that aren't. But in some cases, there's certain types of things you just can't sell online, and they don't make sense to. So
Right. Right. So I guess now the burning question for an Airtable podcast: when did you discover Airtable, and kind of how does it factor into your day to day?
yeah, so I was looking through my email just to see when did I sign up, and I found the intro email at December 11th, 2015.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So a little over 3 years. And a friend, I think he saw an ad on Facebook and he checked it out and he's like, you got to check this out. And I had been looking for Airtable for years before it came out.
Hmm.
I actually found another tool that was kind of like it, but it was not user friendly, and it was just hard to use, and it wasn't where it needed to be for me to be able to use it. So kind of gave up on it. Before that, going back to when I had my marketing company, one of the things we did for ourselves and we did for our clients, and something I do now as a freelancer, is I built what I call these blueprints for the business or for the marketing department or for a project. And essentially the idea is it's a dashboard for an operation. And a lot of businesses is like, how, if the CEO were to disappear, or if a leader was to go away, how would we know what to do next?
Right.
There's no system in place to sort of make that continue, and also have visibility for the leader to be able to see what's going on in his business. And so we just set up this spreadsheet with all. I mean, it's got dozens and dozens of columns and dozens of rows, and we did it in a spreadsheet which is limiting, and we couldn't sort things and group things and have different views. And so in retrospect, I was like, I wish we would have had it then, because it would have made our lives so much easier in terms of managing this thing that we created. But the cool thing was is we got to create it manually, and then when the tool came around eventually, it was a perfect fit. So by the time I found Airtable, again, I was already looking for it. It was exactly what I wanted, and immediately I was figuring out how to leverage it. So yeah.
Cool. And then now, are you using Airtable as mainly kind of just, a hub for your own personal, business and project management, or are you introducing it as part of your solution for clients as well?
Yeah, that's funny. So I initially started using it for myself. In fact, before I had, as a freelancer, I created a freelance dashboard, and we can dive into that a little bit. But um, I also started using it for clients in terms of project managing their stuff. But then I started using it for clients as part of my offering. So, for example, I had a customer who is it's a cabin rental company, kind of like like an Airbnb. You go on Airbnb and you pick your cabin or your property and you rent it out. So it's that kind of thing, but it's specific to luxury cabins. And what I found out was that we could be collect, we can collect data from our customers to get feedback on these cabins, and find out, because of the way that the cabin rental company is, the cabins are distributed all over this, probably 40-50 mile radius. So in terms of cleaning and maintenance, it can be challenging to service them. So what we did is we identified a way, to ask the customers using SurveyMonkey, hey, what are the things the cabin needs to be worked on? They'd fill it out, and then we use Zapier to zap that data into an Airtable. And then we had the cleaning crew, when they went into the cabins, we set them up with iPads, and then they could put any things that the maintenance crew needed to do. So now the maintenance crew had essentially like a ticket system of all these things that came from the cleaners and the guests, and now they knew what would need to be fixed or replaced or updated. And so that was kind of this thing that I did with my customer, like to help his business, to create a technology system that would solve this problem, and Airtable being that tool. And so there were a lot of other things that came out for other clients to be able to capture data or move data, or to organize it in different ways. And so now, I'm not necessarily seeking like Airtable projects, but if it sort of fits into the umbrella of what we're trying to accomplish. But at the end of the day, like all the clients I tell them about Airtable, and all their employees will come to me. How do I do this? How do I do that? So
Right.
I'm the resident expert on Airtable.
Yeah. So even if it's not something directly related to your solution, you're like, you might just want to check this out. Like,
Yeah.
if anyone
So
wants it.
yeah. So the big two things are for me is it again helps me with my freelancing as I keep everything organized, and then two, to project manage what I'm doing with clients. So those are the two biggest things that I'm using
Awesome. Yeah. So
but I could definitely see, like you and others, how you could build an entire business around just
it's kind of
Airtabling.
crazy how flexible it is, and also I think part of it too is there is this weird sort of just like intrinsic satisfaction people get from like seeing it and playing around in it for like 15 minutes. So it's kind of an easy sell, or even just a suggestion. If I am doing a project for a client that doesn't even involve Airtable, like I'm always just like, you should check this out. Like,
Yeah. And that's kind of the way I think about it too, is it's like a tool that allows me, who's not like a coder, to build my own apps. Like I can build whatever I want and do anything I want. And that flexibility is great. Now I do think there are some people that they kind of need the structure for them. They have a hard time building their own structure. So they either need someone like you or me to help build that structure, or they need a tool. But I was using another tool that's become real popular called Monday.com.
Yeah. It used to be Depulse, right?
I think so, yeah.
And then everyone made fun of the name, so they eventually.
Oh, interesting. But I have a client that uses that, so I got into it and was playing with it. And I'm like, man, it's kind of Airtable's a better version of this, because I can replicate what they have there in Airtable, which is similar to what I've done. But with their system, it's a little bit static. So I think that's the challenge with systems, is you have to accept their structure and philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Airtable, we can build it to our own system, our own structure and philosophy. So
right, exactly. But you're right, it does help to see maybe you're like, oh well, Airtable could be this app, but it's just so I'll kind of emulate the structure of it and then tweak it, right? Being able to see kind of what other people have done with Airtable, really kind of gives you I guess inspiration, right? Because it is sort of a creative problem solving type thing to build structure in apps like Airtable, and it does help kind of have that like.
And the other cool thing is the view options to be able to look at the data in different ways. Mm-hmm. So I generally prefer to look at it in the grid view, but there's the Kanban, and then there's the calendar that I sometimes use, and then the forms are awesome as well, and then the gallery as well. So I can take data and then go look at it in different ways, and that's just huge, I think, because I used to use Trello and Airtable. Then once they added Kanban, I was like, Trello, I love you, but I don't need you anymore. Sorry. Goodbye.
So you have a couple of bases that you've built that you'll walk us through. So I think now is a great kind of segue to getting some inspiration from what you built. So go ahead and share your screen and take a
Yes, I will do that. So give me a second here while All right, tell me if you can see my screen.
I can indeed.
All right, great. So I'm going to run through my freelancing dashboard, and we're going to include a link to I have a template of this. I made a few changes to it that I need to roll out to the template, but this will at least get you started. So this is how I operate, how I keep track of things. I'm not going to go to everything, but just the thing I do every single day is I go to this tab, which is my people tab. And so a couple things just to give you some context is I bill my clients in hours, and I do it in batches of 10 hours. And so they're committed, to that batch, and some of them will do a second, some of them pre-commit, some of them are just, we'll go at a pace, we'll prove each one as we go. So as a freelancer, one of the challenges that comes with being our own business is growing, getting new clients and cultivating leads and working through our customers. And so what I wanted to do with this main contact dashboard is I wanted to create a prioritization ordering in terms of how it looks visually from the top to the bottom. So I've got this status that really organizes the groups. And so what you see here is I've got this client, and in this client, I've got it as an urgent status, and it's urgent client. So they're a paid client. And so this person I've got a call with tomorrow. So there's a couple things I need to do today for that, ahead of that call, so that I'm ready for that call. So that's why it's urgent. Now, if I change it, I put it just the normal client status here, it'll group these. These are my clients that I'm working with. And then I've got urgent and then important. So important is like, I need to prioritize this client. So, because I'm getting pulled into these other stuff, and I just need to get some stuff done on this client. So I can put it up here and it'll move it at the top. So that's the idea, is the vertical prioritization. And then I've got a couple different columns here. But before I run into that, I'll just kind of go down here. So I've got another group called day complete. So what I want to do is I've worked on this client for a little bit of time, and I want to move to the next client. So I'm going to move them to the day complete. Means there's still work to be done, but I'm going to close them out for the day. I've got an idle client, which is a client that has some time left, but we don't have a task in place to be able to work on it. So it's just sitting there until that task comes up. A roadblock means there's things I can be doing, but I'm waiting on the client for X, Y, or Z. So that's the client groupings. And so those are all different statuses in here. The next one is the active prospects. So these are people that expressed interest in working with me at some form or another. And so I need to cultivate those relationships. Now, here's how this works. So right now you can see I've got a healthy amount of active clients and work on my plate. But if I didn't, then this would be a lot more anemic, and then this would be at the top of my list. So the idea is that if I need to be doing more sales, the sales stuff is going to come up. If I need to do more paid client work, that paid client work is going to go to the top. So that's how it works for me. And so I'm vertically working my way down. I finish my paid work, and then if I have time left, then I work on cultivating, moving my idle clients forward, or helping my roadblock clients get unroadblocked. Then I'm focused on how do I move these prospects to the next stage. Then I have another category called recently active clients. And these are ones that have worked with me, but we've paused our work for whatever reason. And so if I'm looking for more work, one of the things that I wrote about in Path of Freelancer is the easiest place to get work is from people we've worked with. So
yeah.
Before I go cold calling or networking, I'm gonna go reach out to all the clients I've worked with in the past and say, hey, how's it going? What's new? What problems are you facing? How can I help you? Do you have anything that needs my assistance? So I've got this list here. Then I've got inactive clients, which would be another layer, but just segmented. Like I haven't worked in these in at least 60 days. So some of these could be a couple years ago. And then I've got inactive prospects. So these were leads that came in, but we never actually ended up working together. So I could reach out to them again. And then I just have my contacts that I've created. So that's the vertical prioritization that makes a big difference. And then I can work through the horizontal columns as well. But do you have any questions on that or comments, or shall I proceed?
What I like what you've done here is, it's simple enough, right, where you can easily kind of move things, but also I really like sort of your concept here of, I really know that, given any particular day, you just have kind of what you can see on the screen without scrolling as your priorities. But also it's really nice that you don't really have to, go somewhere else to kind of look for, inspiration for leads or other work. You just simply scroll down and you kind of have it all there, so you can really easily kind of keep it churning in the back of your mind.
Exactly. It's kind of like a pulse check in that sense, and it makes a big difference because I think when we're dealing with a lot of things as a freelancer, it's hard to manage it all.
Yeah.
And I have thought about using a CRM separately from this, but I'm just like, I really need it all to be in one place.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
if
it works for you, just to own it,
Yeah, exactly. I'll run through the columns here. This first one is approved hours. So these are, the client is willing to pay for those hours. So, obviously it's a different amount for different ones. But the cool thing about Airtable is that the groupings. Oh, one of the things that when I first started Airtable, they didn't have the group view,
Hmm.
and that was the thing. I was like, oh man, that changed everything when they
Yeah,
added that.
for sure.
Um, so, but as you can see, I've got these sums. So I have for every month, I have a goal of right now based on how much time I want to work and how much income I want to earn. I want to work 117 paid hours per month.
Got it.
That's my top tier goal. I have kind of a few different levels, but at the highest level. So what I can do is I use a tool for tracking my time called Time Camp,
Hmm.
and so that tracks my time, like what I've done so far. And so I check that every day. Um, and we're just a few days into the month, so it's we're let's say I have 15 hours. So now I can go, well, I've got 70.25 approved hours here, and I've done 15, so I'm at 85. So I need to find 22 hours.
Right.
So this client might do another 10 hours, so I put that under potential hours. This client might do 10 hours. This client might do 10 hours. This client might do 10. And then, so I don't know for sure yet. I haven't gotten approval, but I'm making a guess. So I have 45 hours. If I can get, those, if I can find, some of those hours from that bucket or from these other ones, then I'm going to hit my goal. So I can actually use, like, it's March 6th, and I could tell you if I'm going to hit my goal this month or not.
Yeah.
And like, it's better to know that now than at the end of March when I can't change that. So
Right. And you're like, oh man, it's like 3 days left and I need to find, 20 hours and work them.
exactly, and which is hard. So this column tallies them both. So you can see you got 115 available potentially in actual. And then I've got this formula. It's days left in the month. So I don't work on the weekends. So it's the number of weekdays left. And then there's a formula that you can use. So date, time difference. There's a few different, kind of complicated, but essentially it calculates how many days are left in the month. And then what I do is I add in -8 because that's the number of weekend days there are left,
Right.
and then I -2 because of the number of days I want to take off. So the unfortunate thing is I'm having to change this here. I could probably create another column and maybe put those variables in there, but then I have to do it for every row. And so it's a little, maybe something Airtable can help me figure out in a different
Yeah.
way. But
Date time computations and formulas in Airtable, I think, are one of the more complex things. Like whenever I'm always trying to add and subtract dates, I'm always like looking at the formula reference.
yeah,
It's like just a little
exactly.
bit. It's not as intuitive as some of the other computations you can do. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
Yeah. So, but what I did is the idea is how many days are left, work days are left in the month. And then how many hours do I anticipate for each of these? And then this tells me how much to work each day. So I should be, doing 7.2 hours a day, and then it should be broken out this way. Now, it doesn't always play out that way, but it's a reference point to work from. And so to hit my 117 goal, I have to work 6.16 hours a day, 6.16 hours a day for 19 days. And so this tells me that I've got more than enough time. I'll actually have rollover time for next month. So that's what that column is. And then the next is the status, which I already went through. And then one thing I added this next month column to go, well, how many hours do I think they're going to do next month? So I'm actually starting to figure out, okay, I've got 103 here. If I end up having 10 rollover, then now I'm starting with, I'm trying to project ahead of time and be as proactive as possible.
Right.
The next two columns are for invoicing. So most clients I invoice when we start working, and then they got net 10 to pay it. I have a few exceptions to that, as you can see, but that's what this is. And then this column here is whether they paid that invoice, whether I've just invoiced it or not invoiced it, and whether it's late. And so if I had this as not invoiced, then it would just be a trigger to go, okay, I need to invoice them, and then I would change it. Or if I add another 10, hey, they just approved another 10 hours, I'll put that in there, and I'd have to change this to not invoice. So it's just these little triggers that help me do the things I need to do to make that happen.
Yeah, just kind of, again, having everything kind of laid out in one place. So you're not having to, like look at your, invoicing setup to see if they paid or whatever. And then question for you on kind of how, like, do you check this, at the beginning of every day and update it, or are you updating it as you go along? How do you actually work in this space?
So I'm in here all day long. So it's the first thing I look at. I'm in here from when I'm switching clients. I'm in here at the end. What I would like to do is when I'm done working, like let's say I'm done with this client and I move them to day complete, then I'll check my hours and then I'll update the approved hour amount left. If I don't do that per client, then at the end of the day, I'll go through and I'll just do them all at once. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes I'm a day or two behind and I just update it, but I just want to make sure I'm not doing work that they haven't paid for or haven't approved. So, this tab I have two monitors and this tab is open all day long, and I'm constantly referencing it for different reasons. And the next part I'll show you will add a little bit more detail as to why that is in another way. So, make sense?
Yeah, awesome. And also it's, like really satisfying I would imagine, to be able to move it to day complete, right after you're done.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah.
And I can see it move to the next group, and,
exactly
that little bit of satisfaction.
Exactly. So, that the check, it's like the checkbox effect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now I got these next two columns, what I call the checked in and then the weekly complete. So with the check-in, what I prefer to do with my clients is at the beginning of every week, I just check in with them. Hey, here's what's going on. Here's what I'm planning to do this week. Because a lot of my clients are virtual and I'm not necessarily seeing them. So one of the things with freelancing is a lot of times freelancers are bad at communication, or they disappear. And as a freelancer, I want it to be the opposite of that. So that's one of the ways that I reassure my clients is, hey, I'm here, I'm alive, here's what I'm working on.
Right.
Want me to redirect anything or share something if I've got it. And then the second thing is what I call weekly complete. And that ties to this column, this week's priorities over here. And essentially, when I've got too much to do but not enough time, what I do is I identify like what has to get done this week for all my clients. And then I make sure I get that done. And then if I get anything else done, that's great. But I at least get the things that need to get done.
Right.
So if I've done those things, then I'll check this box, and then it can move them around and stuff. So, and then because these are unchecked, they go up. But the idea is, so I have an auto sort on. I'll go on that in a second. But the idea here is, if I've checked in with the client, then I need to go check in with the other ones, and then have I completed the weekly completes. Now I don't do that. The weekly completes aren't all the time. It's just when I have too much going on and I feel like I'm losing my mind and I got to get control. So
right. Yeah, no, I get it. It's like, you're like, I just need another way to add, to help adjust and organize my priorities. So they're there.
Yeah. So as you can see, I've got a sort. So I actually sort the order of these. So I have the statuses that groups them and it orders them. That's sort of the override. But within the group, I order it based on the variables. If they paid, I give them a little more priority. If they've checked in or a weekly complete, changes it, the number of hours. So these just create another level of, because right now I got 7 clients in here. So I'm limited to what I can do in a particular day. So I want to make sure I keep those in another, just always figure out how to prioritize. And minimize the amount of time I'm thinking, because thinking takes energy and effort.
Yeah.
And I sort of want to, what do I need to do next, and then focus on that, and this helps me do that.
Right.
So a lot of the thinking was in creating this, but it keeps me from having to do too much of that, because switching back and forth can be time. There's just a lot of variables.
Yeah, I think there's all those studies, on task switching, and it takes an average of 25 minutes or something to switch in between tasks.
Okay.
Because,
yeah.
you'll check your email and then,
Yeah.
so it's like, and I think one of the benefits about being a freelancer is that you can, because you're controlling how your workday is structured, right? And especially when you have a, smartly built tool like you have here, then the whole goal is to eliminate that task switching. So there's not the whole like, oh my gosh, I had such a busy day, but what did I get done? Like nothing really.
Yeah. So that goes to the next piece is, so I have there's two layers here. There's for me, and then because I'm working with clients, they have their own things. So I have these three columns that tie into that. And one is, this is my idea repository of things I'm just collecting notes or ideas or actions. And then this is this week's priorities, which is tied to this thing. And so I use those two columns if the project's small enough, or we haven't been working long enough, I'll use these following two fields. But at some point, a lot of the clients, they outgrow that. And so I'll set up their own Airtable. And but I put the link here so I can just quickly access it.
Right.
So it gets right to it. And then here I am. And then this one, as you can see, there's a lot going on, a lot of projects. So that's where I go. And then, I have different clients that are on Airtable. And then this is the Monday one I mentioned. And then I have a Trello one here as well. But by default, I start with these two fields. And then once they outgrow it, I build their own Airtable. Cool. So that makes sense?
Yeah, I love it. Just kind of everything, laid out and just sort of perfectly Jasonized, So,
yeah, exactly. Exactly
also,
how I need it.
Yeah, just really kind of adaptable where it's, it's not like you're spending so much time in here that it's, taking away from other things. But like you said, you don't have to think anymore about what should I do next. Yeah. You already decided and it's there for you. So you're like, thank you, past Jason.
Exactly. So, and I have some other fields, contact information, email, phone number. I added a little automation tool where I can invite them to my email list, and then I can actually add them just through a checkbox, where the person came from, who was the referral or source. So there's some other variables, and I won't go into too much detail now, but they are in the template. And I did just, this isn't something I use anymore, but for a little while I created a grid view of this. So I put my clients' pictures in there so I could actually see them, because I was like, I'm virtual and I never see them. This is like a way to humanize it, but I ended up just kind of not doing it, or not sticking with it, because it was not as efficient as this view. So
right, but yeah, whenever you need a little bit of pseudo face-to-face, you can always go back to the gallery view. Awesome.
Exactly. So there's a lot more to this. There's other tabs for tracking my hours month to month, tracking my hours year to year, revenue, projects. I've got different ways to kind of predict recurring income, and there's a lot here. But I know we got limited time, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and then of course everyone can head to Airtable Universe. We'll include that link to your profile in the show notes so they can check it out. Download a copy, play around if they want.
Yeah.
But I think we have a little bit of time. I know you kind of wanted to walk through a second base, so you can take a peek at that too.
Yeah, that works. So I had mentioned, client database here. And so this, there's a couple things I'll show you here. In this particular client, I project manage several other freelancers. And so in terms of a project management view, I'll just go to my view for here for a second. Under status, that's how we're grouping it. And so I've got done, maintain, stuck, active, next, idea repository, archive. And just like in my freelancing dashboard, I vertically prioritize these based on how I want to see them. So I want to see done things first, then maintain things, stuck, and then active. And the idea is that, that way I'm looking through them in that order. Things we have to maintain, if I put that at the bottom, I might forget about it,
Right.
Things that are stuck, I might forget that they're stuck. So the idea is that I'm organizing that. And I have this tab here this column called passengers. And these are all the people that are involved in the project. That was another great thing that Airtable added. was collaborators. And so now,
that.
I can add people and it can notify them, and you can do commenting and stuff. What's the intent of the project? And then what are the actions that we need to get done? Is there a link? The strategy stage that's tied to, I mentioned those 5 stages, low-hanging fruit, simplify everything, make what's left better, identify and fill in the gaps, and then master maintenance. So we identify which part of that it is. One cool thing that Airtable has is you can add a column where it's the created date, so you can see when it was created. But this particular view is a action view for me. So these are the things I need to be aware of and working on. And then I have, for each of the different freelancers, I have a view. So you can see what's on there. So as we do a weekly call, and then everyone will go through their items, and then they'll update their items. Then I also have a view for the owner of the business. So I'll click on that, and this is essentially just trimmed down to a list of what I think is most relevant for him to look at. But you can see there's a lot of different tabs. I've got a planning view. So this is more of what are all the things that are in place, ideas, what do we need to be working on. And so it's just, this tab or this this base has like hundreds and hundreds of records, but what I've done is just create different views for different people to see the data they need, when they need it, how they need it. And we've got some other tabs here that, we're creating some cross-linking tabs. We've got different goals, and those goals are assigned to different campaigns, and people are, involved in the different goals here. So, that's kind of a high-level view of what's going on. For something that's got a lot of pieces moving.
Yeah. And the one thing I do like too about doing to-do lists in Airtable is that since it's so easy to filter things, you don't have to delete things, which is useful sometimes, right? Because instead of just, doing a to-do list like on paper or in some other apps where it's not easy to see everything that's done, you can kind of look back and get, a sense of how things are balanced between team members, or kind of what your velocity is, like how long it takes you to do things, what you have done. So it's kind of nice to have that, and I'm guessing the archive status kind of serves that purpose here for you guys.
Exactly. So let's say we finish this, and then we just hit archive, and then I've got a filter set up that says if it's this is actually our filtering archive and the idea repository. So in the action view, it's like we don't want to be ideating, we just want to be doing.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's the cool thing is like to keep those things around for reference later. And maybe there's something in Airtable I haven't explored, is like to your point, is maybe there's a way to track how many items are we doing over time, and actually be able to see progress in that way.
Right. So. Yeah. And then also, kind of going along with that, just if you do have something that is coming up, you can just put it in there, and its status is next, right? So it's not like you hand it to someone and you're like, okay, here's when I want you to do it, or like don't do it yet, but you can just kind of, silently just, kind of slide it into this upcoming, area, and then.
Yeah, and that was a big thing. Is I was like, because when we were essentially using active, we'd put next things in active, right? And I was like, I think it'd be better if there was another place for next items, so they could accrue, and then those could be reviewed and moved into active. And I think that to your point of like moving it changes the dynamic in that transition, and kind of concluding one thing and starting the next.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So just, I think the critical thing for the project management is I wanted to just really create a very simple system, and the status single select is the biggest piece of this. Here are the stages from beginning to end, and then the passenger piece is another piece, and everything else, outside the name, we could hide the rest of this, and this would be a solid, simple project management system. It can get more complex once you need it to be, but I think at the end of the day, kind of like with my vertical prioritization, I want to just be able to know, like mentally, when I go into this thing, if it's stuck, then I'm unstucking something. If I'm maintaining, I'm just keeping something going. If I'm active, I'm sort of building something. And if it's next, then I need to figure out how to get it started. So just trying to minimize the thinking and just identify what the next action is to do that.
Right, because it's like you've already done all that thinking about prioritization and timing in your head when you add the task. So it's easy in Airtable to customize whatever statuses you want to just be able to reflect that, so you don't have to think about it twice.
Exactly. Yeah, we probably overthink. The whole idea of overthinking things. It's definitely something that we do. But I think as an achiever, because again, when I ran the business, I was more of a visionary, and like I thought of great things, but then at the end of the day, there were a lot of things I just never got done because I never acted on them.
Right.
So I want to figure out, just how to wisely balance the visioneering and the execution and make sure they're both moving forward and neither is dominating the other.
Right. Yeah, you kind of do need that balance. And I think, really it's like you realize you're like, I don't need another person for that balance. Just me. I'll balance myself.
Yeah. And it does take hard discipline and I like structure and organization, and I've had to sort of learn behaviors to sort of offset my personality that maybe has struggled in some of these areas. So yeah.
Yeah, I really think, like task management and project management, it's weird because you kind of, it's one of those things like car maintenance where you're like, why don't we get just like taught this in school?
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone should need to learn integrals, but I would really like to learn how to change a tire or like think about sort of managing just like these weird life skills that you kind of, especially as a freelancer, you're like, oh wow, I really need to figure this out for myself. And it's super obvious if you're doing it not well because you don't make as much money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we live or die by that organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big part of why I wrote Path of the Freelancer. Is just a lot of freelancers didn't have that structure and they struggled to create it for themselves. But if someone could show them one, they could mimic that. And so the book has these 8 systems or structures that a freelancer can adapt and implement to succeed. To make it a little easier for them, I did the thinking.
Yeah. So tell us before we sign off where people can go to check out more about you and your work and find your book.
Yeah, so on my website, jasonscottmontoya.com, I'm blogging there pretty regularly. You can just scroll down. I've got different categories, which I've broken down into growing myself, growing my business, or growing others, and then stories and inspiration as well. So you've got these 4 areas you can explore. I've got a projects tab if you want to see what I'm up to, side projects and books. If you're interested in Path of the Freelancer, there is a website for that called pathofthefreelancer.com. The book is available on Amazon, so you can check it out there. You can buy it on paper. You can buy a physical or a digital. What I would recommend is if you want to read it on Kindle, to buy it physically, because I have Matchbook set up. So if you buy a physical copy, you get the Kindle edition for free.
Very nice.
And then you can either use the physical one or give it away. So you check that out on Amazon. Again, my website's jasonscottmontoya.com, and you can explore that. We'll put the link to the Airtable universe. You can check out my profile there and follow me for any new templates I might make in the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jason. It's been great chatting with you and kind of getting, peeking into your day today and how you use Airtable to manage it. And best of luck with, all of your kind of, projects. And, basically, I think you're kind of like the freelance small business version of Bar Rescue. You go in and just turn everything around. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. And we'll link to your website and your Airtable universe page in the show notes so people can check out more of your work.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.